Hey everyone, and welcome to the May edition of 3030. Pat Reinhardt here, as always, with Val Ruiz, and we are ready to tackle what has happened in the last 30 days. So what are we going to be covering today? Let's take a look. Okay, we're going to be talking about C3, which just happened last week in New York City. Going to do a quick little recap of it. It was a great event. Also going to be talking about Google's indexing bug, what happened, what it means. I got a lot of questions about this, which is why I'm covering it. Also, some new features coming to Google Image Search. Those who have joined in the past know how much I have pushed image search and how little I believe it's utilized, or how incorrectly it has been utilized over the years. We're going to be talking about Googlebot now being evergreen, what that means and why it's a big deal, and also why Google is thinking about charging for Google My Business listings. So that's always a fun topic when they're thinking about making you pay more money. So let's get into it because we only have 30 minutes. Number one, C3 was last week. Thank you to everyone on the phone who came. It was a glorious event. We had about 700 marketers from all over the world come to speak and listen and learn, and a great time was had by all. I particularly liked Upasana Gautam's speech on voice search, mainly because someone in the audience shouted out that I had said something that went against what she was saying, which was super funny, but it was all good. Rand's talk was really good. Gary Vaynerchuk's talk was really good. So all around, really great, really great talks, really great learnings. And if you didn't get a chance to make it out, you can go to c3.conductor.com. We'll have all the content up there very shortly, all the talks and all the decks, so that you can go through and learn from the comfort of your own office. But also, if you didn't get a chance to come out, definitely an event that you should consider coming to next year. When I was a customer of Conductors, I went to C3 every single year. We sponsored it a few years back at the agency. I also spoke at it a couple of years. It's one of the first places I started speaking, so it's a great conference to come out, talk to people about organic search. It's the best conference for organic search, in my opinion. Not biased because I was a customer beforehand. I can speak from experience. But it was definitely an awesome event. Congrats to our marketing team, and thank you to everyone who came and listened and learned. It was a great 3 days. My legs were jello on Thursday, but it was well worth it to see everyone and hang out and have great conversations. Moving on to Google's indexing bug. So what happened? Okay. So around or on April 4th, it's really, the pinpoint is really on April 4th. People around the industry started reporting that pages just started to fall out of Google's index for no apparent reason. And when asked, what the bug was, it appears that it was a technical issue, on Google's side. So John Mueller came out and said, this is a technical issue on us. We'll have it fixed. And that was on April 6th, I believe, is when he actually, came out and said something. So the big question that I've gotten over the course of, the big question I've gotten is, how do I know if this impacted me? Now, a lot of folks will probably be like, well, you could look at your traffic, this, but but it's a good question, and it's like, for the most part, what I've been telling folks is, go look in Google Search Console, and look between April 4th and April 10th. April 4th is when people started to see pages fall out of the index. April 10th is when it was confirmed that that everything was fixed and reprocessed. So go in there and look at your coverage report in Google Search Console and see if you saw a bunch of pages start to fall out of the index. That's something that that's the number one thing. Go and see if you saw a big kind of chunk of pages just disappear. Now from there, during that same period, if you go into your analytics platform, whether that's GA, Adobe, Core Metrics, Heap, whatever you're using, did you see lower traffic than usual, lower conversions, overall performance? I had a lot of people email me and my team saying, hey, during the first week of April, the first week or so of April, we were seeing lower performance. What was going on? And we were actually able to tie that back to the indexing bug that they had lost. Many pages, out of the index. Of course, for Google, it was a technical issue. And then the other question I got is, or not even question isn't even the right way to put it. The comments that I got was about how Google handled the messaging, because how did they do it? John came out on the 7th and said, or on the 6th, excuse me, said, sorry, we had a technical issue on our side there for a while. And then they were kind of like, oh yeah, this is going to be fixed soon. And then Search Liaison, on the 7th as well said, yep, we're aware of the indexing issues, yada, yada, yada. And then it just kind of started to roll from there. Then again on the 7th, Danny Sullivan said, I don't have an ETA. I would expect it to be soon, matter of hours, but maybe can't guarantee that. It was not a matter of hours. I mean, hours, yes, but 4 days worth of hours. And then again on the 7th, again, John came out again and said, hey, we're still working on this. And then, of course, defended that they don't use index all URLs on the web, so even once it's reprocessed, yada, yada, yada. And then on the 9th, Search Liaison Twitter account, the indexing issue should be almost completely resolved within the next 8 hours. Some documents might take an additional 12 to 24 hours. And then ultimately, on April 10th, the indexing issue has now been fully resolved. They apologized for the inconvenience and appreciated our patience as we restored normal operation. So, for me, this whole thing kind of sucked. We had a bunch of customers that are impacted by it. And there's really nothing to do about it. Things happen. It's not John or Danny's fault or anyone over at Google's. It's just that, a bug occurred, and it took them way longer than anticipated to fix, which, again, also okay. They're no crystal ball works in this world. But at the end of the day, this kind of sucked. And, that's kind of what happened. And, people were asking, what type of problem was it? What was going on? Can you give us a little bit more insight? And at the end of the day, John just said no. Google said no. Of course, they're not going to give us any in-depth details about what was happening. They never do. But at least they did acknowledge that there was a problem and give people regular updates. So that was nice from all over. But at the end of the day, this was just a bug, and the bug that needed to be squashed. And eventually, it took them almost 7 full days to do it. So if that tells you how long. How long that was. I also had some people, due to the indexing bug that said that they had additional information that was missing from Google Search Console. That was actually one that was talked about as well around the industry, but I had some clients that didn't have any information missing from that time period, and then some that did. It was really strange, but at the end of the day, it was a bug that was squashed, and that's just kind of what it was. It just kind of sucks. So here we are. Moving on. So something I'm excited about. Updates to Google Image Search. So, everyone who has joined over the last couple of years knows that I'm a big proponent of image search, right? I think it's highly underutilized, especially by e-commerce brands. But at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of features out there that a lot of people don't utilize to their full potential. So a couple of things that have rolled out and that are rolling out. Shoppable ads are not new. This is something that was talked about back in March, and it's currently a test. They actually did do another beta for a program like this several years ago, where there were, you can see the little price tag in the bottom right-hand corner of the main image there, and that makes everything pop up. They tried this out a few years ago where they had price tags all over images, and I think this is just probably the next evolution of that test, because that one didn't work out so well. But at the end of the day, this one, as you can see the image scrolling, it's pretty cool. You can press on the price tag or on one of the dots on the image, and then the price will come up, and it'll tell you if it's on, and tells you which image, which product that lives within that image is on sale, which is super cool. But at the end of the day, this is something that all e-commerce brands should be looking into, like at least looking into getting into the test if you can. But also just to keep an eye out for a beta, or keep an eye out for something that you can dive into. It'll show things like price, brand, a lot more than that. And Google said that they will continue to roll this out to more categories across more retailers over the next few months. So if you are an e-commerce brand and this is the first time you were seeing this, you should 100% look into this and see if it's something that's right for you. I think it's super cool. I think it's a cool experience and just another way to utilize image search. Everyone thinks that YouTube is the second largest, search engine in the world, and that's actually not true. Google Images is 14 times bigger, or controls 14 times more traffic than YouTube. So actually Google Images is the second largest search engine in the world, because it uses a separate algorithm and all that. But at the end of the day, this is something that every retailer should be thinking of, but really could be used for any brand selling anything. So at the end of the day, definitely something to do that. They're also going to be bringing something called Showcase Shopping ads to Google Images. I do not know what that is, but being a huge fan of The Price is Right, I assume that will be an amalgam of different products showcased together under one theme. But again, don't have a lot of information on that, but definitely something that you guys should be looking into and should be aware of. So, the next one, higher resolution images. Again, something they've been talking about for a really long time. But what's going to be going on, this will be opt-in. It's going to be an opt-in program only. But I don't know why you wouldn't opt in if you have high-res images. So for the most part, you're going to be able to tell Google or feed them, a high-resolution image using a special schema markup that they can then use to serve for image, AMP, Google Discover, etc. So talking about the importance of schema tagging in general, everyone knows that that's becoming or has become, something very important for sites, really all types of sites to use schema tagging properly. But this is just another way, and I imagine, it'll be interesting to see how people utilize this. Because I was thinking about this the other day, why would it's like, okay, so high-res images, everyone wants to put high-res images on their site, but as we all know, high-res images are much larger and, can cause page speed to go in the toilet. So at the end of the day, I was like, man, I wonder if this will be a way where you could have, think about AMP, for example, right? So, AMP, you have a cached version of a page that shows up, quote-unquote, instantly when someone, navigates to it because there's no load time. I was like, man, this higher resolution image thing could be, kind of the same way. Let's say that you have the two different, versions of the image. And you have the high-res version and then maybe a more low-res version just for speed standpoint. And I'm wondering that if you have the high-res version, somewhere on your site that doesn't load on the page, but Google can still crawl and get to, and you use this schema markup to tell Google, hey, this image is associated with this page, and this is the high-res version. I would like you to use an image search and other areas. And then people can get to that, but they can still get to the page that has the lower res image for page speed, for page speed benefits. And if you're using a CDN and things of that nature, I was wondering if that's a way that you would be able to use this, which would be super interesting. But at the end of the day, I don't know if that's how they want to do it. But what it does do is that it's a way that you can feed Google, a high resolution image, but using, basically schema markup, which is super cool. You can tell Google this is the high res version of this, please serve this in Google Image, Google Discover, etc. But at the end of the day, I'm hoping it kind of works in my tinfoil hat way, where we can, we will be able to host the high res image somewhere else, and then tell Google with the schema markup, hey, this is the version of this image I want you to show, but it is associated with this URL where the lower version is, so it doesn't affect our page speed. So it'll be interesting to see how that works, if it's just another workaround for something like that. So just a thought there, but moving on, and oh no, my animated GIF is not working. So here we are anyway. So what we're looking at right now, so something new called Swipe Up to Navigate. Right now, we don't know a ton about it, and what's supposed to be happening right now is that if you click, so everyone knows what the Oscars are, so when you click on the Oscar statue, you get the full page on your phone of the image. You'll be able to swipe up to navigate to the AMP version of the page with that image on it. Unfortunately, the demonstration is not working here, but at the end of the day, the big thing to note here is that there isn't a lot of information on this right now. You need AMP, you have to be AMP enabled to make this work, but also it looks really cool. So even though my presentation screwed up here, you should go out and Google Swipe Up to Navigate, Google, so that you can see how it works. It's really cool. There's a great article on Search Engine Roundtable. Barry covered it really well, but it's really cool to see, when they were announcing this, just the different features that are coming, to image search, because it's definitely something that is, definitely something that's highly underutilized. I know I've said it 4 or 5 times already today, but it's something that I've always pushed people to use image search as a bigger weapon than they currently do. The last one, but the coolest one by 1985 standards, is that 3D images with AR support is coming. So what the hell does that mean? So for the most part, this is also something that they were talking about a few years ago. I distinctly remember this 3D image thing, and it was probably 2 or 3, maybe even 4 years ago when they were talking about this, where basically you could Google something, and and an image comes up, as you can see here in this image, and then you see this little button down here that says View in 3D, right? So then, if you have a 3D version of that image, it then comes up, and you're like, okay, cool, so now I have this 3D image that you can rotate, and you can do whatever with it, and then you can click the other button right there, which you can see says View in your space, and then you can put that 3D image in your space. Now, why you would use this for the muscle flexion, I don't know. I don't know why you would want the 3D model of that weird skeleton with the muscle on your desk, or why you would want to see it that way. I assume it's probably one of the only, if not the only, image tests that they have with this. But what I was thinking about, what is the application for this, right? What's the application? For me, this would be really big for companies like Wayfair, Josh & Main, although I think Josh & Main is owned by Wayfair, so Wayfair, and other furniture companies, and design with paintings and things like that, where you could, if you provided a 3D image of your, of your product, and you were able to do that, then someone like myself could take their phone and have that 3D image of like a chair or a couch or a painting or a desk or something of that nature, and I could place it into my room to see if it matches the paint on my walls, if it looks good with the other furniture and things of that nature. That's really where I was thinking is one of the main applications for this. The muscle flexion thing, sure, I get it, it's just an example, but I don't know. Val, what about you? Do you think you do this? Val's just looking at me like, don't talk to me. But I think that, the muscle flexion is a weird example, but I think the takeaway here is that, this is another cool way that retailers could take their products and we could use it as the consumers and kind of see if it matches everything in a room, so that it's just that extra step of, okay, hey, listen, like this chair looks good in here, or, this desk actually matches the rest of my furniture. At least I have a much better feeling of that. So I think that's where it's going to have a better application. This, sure. I mean, yeah, now I feel bad for the muscle flexion search. Now I feel like I've made fun of it. So I apologize, muscle flexion 3D image. But moving on from that weird joke. So what's next? So it was announced at Google I/O on May 7th that Googlebot is now evergreen. I heard this, and I actually turned around to my team and was like, hey guys, Googlebot is now evergreen. And then everyone just looked at me like, all right, man, and then just kind of went back to work because I'm a huge nerd. And but for the most part, I was excited about this, and I know a bunch of other people were excited about it, because one of the biggest annoyances of Googlebot is that it doesn't update with when a version of Chromium updates and Chrome for the Chrome browser. And that's something because you don't get all the benefits that come along with those updates from a crawling and indexing standpoint. So the question that I've gotten about this is, why do we care? For the most part, it brings thousands of new features to Googlebot from a crawling perspective. And when you look to the image on the right, you can see just all the things that previously it did not do that it will do for the new version of Chromium, which is great. But the even bigger and better news is that Googlebot will now regularly update. So that is the more important one, in my opinion. Yeah, they update Googlebot, eventually every time that Chromium updates. But now they're going to update, now Googlebot will update automatically itself, as the browser updates. And that's really the most important thing, from a crawling standpoint, that as these new features come out, Googlebot will be able to support probably 90% of them, if I had to say. It's probably never going to be 100% every time a new version comes out, with all the different things that it can do. This will allow Googlebot to, just continue to ingest things, but also that we won't have to there won't be this like lag time between the update and when Google will be able to process things. So that's the big news here. And, for the most part, the other question I got is there like something I have to do for this? And the answer is no. You just enjoy those sweet, sweet new features. And, for me, this is something that I've had a lot of conversations with people about over the years, like why hasn't Googlebot updated automatically? It's a little bizarre. But of course, I know exactly what goes into this. And also, if you're super technical and you're super nerd like I am, you should go read all the technical back-end stuff about this, about all the differences, between what it about what it is, how how it's built and all that stuff, because it's there's some interesting interesting documentation out there about what all of this means and why it's important to search and why it's important to crawling, things of that nature. So there's definitely some value there as well if you want to take it the extra mile and you have an hour to kill, and you want to kill it on that and not like taking a brisk walk, which is probably a better use. But at the end of the day, it depends how depends how technical you want to get and how well you want to understand it. But either way, from a high level, Googlebot is now evergreen, meaning that it will regularly update with new versions of Chromium for the Chrome browser, and that will provide a ton of benefits for crawling and for SEOs alike. So that is super exciting. And then moving on to the last one. Why is Google thinking of charging for Google My Business listings? Over the last month and a half, I have gotten so many questions and had so many conversations about this. And, for the most part, for me, listen, I've said this many times, that, everyone forgets sometimes that Google is a free service, and that we do not have to use Google. Of course, we all use Google because it's synonymous with search, and that's just what we do. Google's a verb. But for the most part, why did Google send out a survey asking people, how they felt about, managed listings and more paid options for it? And guys, it's just, it's because of money. Like Google has Google Maps and has Google My Business, and it does not monetize it as much as it could. Yes, there are ads in there that you can buy, but for the most part, from the listing standpoint, Google does nothing from a listing management standpoint, and there's a lot of other ways that they could be monetizing, this system that they built. Google Maps and Google My Business, that is a product of Google, and they don't monetize it as much as they could. And again, Google being a free service, it's one of those things, it's one of those things where we want to, it's one of those things where we just kind of have to understand that, they're at some point, they're always going to want to monetize, the products that they built. We've seen it with all the different types of paid, paid options that exist right now. You have, like when PLAs came out, there was a huge uproar about that. When the carousel started to come out, there was a huge uproar about that. When they added 4 ads on top of the SERPs instead of 3 for more broader terms, there was a huge outcry about that. And they're just going to keep doing. I don't know if anyone even saw some of the new, the Google Discover ads, in the app that basically take up the entire screen. You don't get, you got to do 3 really big thumb scrolls to get down to an organic listing on the phone. But at the end of the day, that's what Google's, business model is going to be monetizing these things. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. I also don't know. Another question I got was about pricing around this. It's like, how much do you think they're going to charge? How would they charge? For me, I have no idea. You don't even know if they're even going to do this. That's why they sent the survey out. My guess is that they're going to get an extreme amount of negative feedback from it, and they might not do anything, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a beta program for something in the next 6 to 9 months if they're going to roll something out, because they probably already have something like this built or have been thinking about building it for a long time. So I wouldn't be surprised if they gave it the old college try and went out there and tried to get into listing management or some other way to monetize it. But at the end of the day, if they get an extreme amount of feedback, we may never hear about this again. But we'll see what happens. But from a pricing standpoint, for regular ads and stuff like that, it'll be some kind of CPC model. For the listings, it'll be a per listing type thing. I'm sure there'll be packaging and things of that nature. But again, if we ever see something like this again. So, we'll have to see where the Googs lands. But at the end of the day, it is what it is, and that's how Google operates. And with that, Val, we've done it once again. Another month down, but I know we have some questions that we have to get to. So everyone, in the last 5 minutes, we will answer some questions. We have a bunch, and then we will get right to it. So if you have them, throw them down into the question bar. Here's one. You mentioned that Googlebot will auto-update with its shift to being evergreen. Does this/will this impact the frequency that our site is crawled? No, I don't think so. I think this is more on the Google side, just how their technology is being updated. I don't think this is gonna impact like crawl rates or crawl budgets or things of that nature. I could be wrong, but I don't see why. This is more on the technology side on their end, not the frequency that it's crawling anything. But it's a good thing to consider, right? It's definitely something to it's definitely something to think about. But I don't think so. I don't think that's going to impact the frequency that our site is crawled at all. Looking through a few others, some pricing questions about Google My Business listings. Again, probably going to be some CPC model or a per listing type thing. Here's one about the image search. Is there any other ways that we can sorry, I was having a brain moment at the moment. Any other way that we can enhance our image search? Any other features you hadn't mentioned? Yeah, so there's a couple, actually. So one thing that exists, or two things, actually, that exist for images that are highly underutilized. Number one, AMP. So you can amplify your images. I know I'm not supposed to say amplify. I know Google doesn't like that, but whatever, man. But at the end of the day, yeah, you can actually put AMP on your images, to make them come up quicker. So again, that's why when we were talking about the high-res images, I'm wondering if that's going to be, if that's going to work, if you can make that work in a similar way. As AMP page, it's more of like a cached version that doesn't impact page speed. But that's one thing that you can do. You can amp your images. The other thing that is grossly underutilized is schema tagging for images. So this is something that a lot of people don't realize, that just like a regular page, you can actually add schema tagging to an image and put reviews, pricing, things of that nature on them. I think REI is one of the only brands that uses it, that I've seen that uses it regularly. For the most part, I don't see a ton of companies doing it. So if you're a retailer, that's definitely an opportunity for you, is to use schema tagging on the images. But from there, again, showing price, showing reviews, just helping yourself stand out in Google image search, as well as regular search, will definitely help you along there. So definitely that's something to consider as you're going along. Couple of other things. Here we go. Here's another. Okay, so another image search one. For the 3D images, do we have any idea when it's going to be rolling out? Okay, cool. No, they didn't give any dates or anything like that. Again, they announced a lot of this during Google I/O. That these features were coming. No hard dates, nothing like that. But at the end of the day, it's, my guess is that if they announce it, it'll be coming in the extremely near future. They usually don't wait too long once they announce something. So I would imagine we would start to see tests opening up in the next few months. So I would definitely keep your eye out for that. We have a question. We have time for one last one. Where can I learn more about AMP, how to implement it, etc.? Go to ampproject.org. That is usually where that's where all the information lives. They have all the technical guides, everything you could think of or want from AMP documentation lives at ampproject.org. So I would just head over there. And with that, we are at time. Everybody who has joined, thank you so much. I say this every month, but this is my favorite part of my job. I could not do it without you. Thank you so much for the continued support, and we will see you next month.